across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 electric hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, August the 10th. Here's what's coming up. Back from his thoroughly well-deserved holiday, King Andy embarks on his regal tour of Britain to meet his adoring subjects. And we're assured our sanctimonious supreme leader is in listening mode. If so, that'll make a nice change from the total lack of listening he's been doing since undemocratically waltzing into Downing Street and telling us what we should and should not be worried about. Will Burnham listen to the majority of long-suffering Brits who want him to stop the boats? Unlikely. He's barely mentioned the migrant crisis so far, too busy singing Smith's songs and defining what a bread roll should be called. Who cares? 0344 499 1000. In other news, as our unelected Prime Minister and his mysteriously overrated hopeless Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood insist there's nothing to see anymore because Labour's plan to stop the boats is working, a mega-dinghy carrying an astonishing 230 passengers, the biggest so far, crosses the Channel from France. Meanwhile, French cops look on with mild interest as migrants bundle a tiny baby into a waiting, not-so-small boat, but do nothing to prevent these illegal foreigners putting this poor little mite in mortal danger. That's great, isn't it? Is Labour's plan working? Or is that a complete lie by our gaslighting Premier? 0344 499 1000. Also, on today's action-packed show, Nigel Farage's fury as police at long last concede that the firebomb attack on his home was probably not just a burglary. The Whitehall Mandarin commuting from his £2.2 million London townhouse to run Burnham's stupid No10 North. The far-left, deeply socialist new Cabinet Secretary who sends her 3 kids to very expensive private schools. Hypocrisy on steroids. 0344 499 1000. Reform UK tells Restore Britain Supremo Rupert Lowe that if he genuinely wants a peace pact, he'll have to ditch his controversial sidekick, who stands accused of anti-Semitism and racism. And finally, Kinsey Schofield with all the latest news from Planet Royal. Stay tuned to find out what Meghan thinks her superpower is. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday afternoon together and let's go straight over to my first guest. She is Talk's international editor, our excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good afternoon, Kev. Well, the thing that's exercising me most today, out of many things to be annoyed about, is the so-called small boat that has come across with 230 people on board. That is not a small boat, as the BBC is calling it in its headline. That is basically a significant passenger ferry. Look at that thing. I mean, this is monstrous, isn't it? This is absolutely scandalous.
Yeah, I said earlier, Isabel, if you turn that round the other angle, it would almost be a bridge from France to Britain. It's massive and incredibly dangerous. Something like that with any significant wave would buckle and split and they'd all fall into the sea. That's how dangerous it is. We're going to have a look in a little while as well at really disturbing footage at the weekend. The cops, French cops, right, just standing there on the beach, We're used to this as migrants pile onto a waiting migrant, a small boat, not so small boat. But the migrants are carrying this tiny tot, this mite, this little baby's clearly not long born, you know, wrapped in swaddling clothes, onto that boat, onto that dinghy to cross the channel. And, you know, at the very least, surely the gendarmes could step in and say, you're not taking that baby across. Yeah. That's dangerous. And yet, they just stand there smoking their Gulwar, watching, all for £1 billion worth of British taxpayers' money. It's a shambles, and this Prime Minister and this allegedly good Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, we've got to get to grips with the fact she's not actually very good. We've also got to get to grips with the fact I'm getting sick of people always saying, oh, Andy Burnham is a nice bloke. I'm not sure I agree with him. Is he a nice bloke? I'm not so sure. He's not listening to us. He's going on this tour of Britain, saying he's in listening mode, but I bet if you go up to him and say, well, I'm not interested in your social care system or your bus fares or your millions of mayors deranged devolution plan, I'm interested in you stopping the boats, I bet he doesn't listen then.
I mean, this whole listening exercise, I was talking about it with Ian this morning. You shouldn't need to go on a listening exercise after you've become Prime Minister. You ought to have done the listening exercise while you were auditioning for the job, while you were preparing for the job. He shouldn't need to be doing this. And I don't really imagine anyone is going to tell him anything of any great significance during this exercise for the cameras. In any case, he ought to know what needs to be done. The problems aren't, I mean, they're complicated and they're huge, but they're not a mystery. We know what the problems are. There's that boat there, Andy, that mega boat. So could start with that. Welfare state, you know, all the things that we talk about the whole time on your show. I don't think there's time for listening exercises, honestly. I think the time is now to get on and change things and show that he's different.
Yeah, well, we all know what his listening tour of Britain will be. It will be a series of specially choreographed, selected PR appearances where specially chosen citizens complain to him about what he wants them to complain to him about, as in the cost of living or whatever, not in any way minimising the importance of the cost of living crisis, but he doesn't want to listen to anything else. He will not want to listen to what is statistically and factually the #1 concern of the British people, and that is the migrant crisis. I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, talk about gaslighting us. Talk about lying to us. On Saturday, 258 migrants came across. Yesterday, 423. We're told more coming across today, and he's looking us in the face. So is Shabana Mahmood, and telling us nothing to see here. Labour's plan to stop the boats is clearly working. Quite the reverse. It is clearly, palpably not working, and he doesn't want to talk about it. That's a disgrace.
Well, the other thing that no one's talking about is, as the numbers have gone down, and we can be clear about that, it's true that the numbers are down a bit. It's enough for them to be able to boast about it. I believe that there has been an equal or greater number to make up the difference that are coming over by other means. I think people are coming over in the back of cars, in the back of lorries, on ferries. You know, you don't actually need to get a migrant dinghy to come across the channel illegally. You can get in a bus and pay your fare in a different way. You can hide and you can come over on the ferry from Calais to Dover. And we know there are people, I've got the evidence of it, there are people doing this, and no one is talking about that. And I think that there's been a period where it's, for various reasons, got a little bit trickier operationally for the people smugglers, and they are getting more customers through these old-fashioned means. I don't think for a second that a technical drop-off in the number who are coming over by dinghy is reflective of a net drop-off in illegal immigrants coming from France to the UK. I think the numbers overall will be at least as large as they always have been. There are just different methods being used to get here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it all adds up to a situation that is completely unacceptable, because we have the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, as I say, gaslighting us, or if you prefer, lying to us, telling us nothing to see here, everything is under control. It palpably is not. And also, you know, they have a... It's incumbent upon them to talk to us about this. Listen to this, Andy. But he won't, because he likes to define the agenda that we should be interested in his little mind, in his little northern socialist mind. We should be interested in social care. We should be interested in bus fares. We should be interested in deranged devolution. Well, here's the deal, Andy. We're not particularly. We are interested in you stopping the boat. So how about you listen to us? It would be nice, wouldn't it?
It really would be nice, absolutely. So I think, you know, I think Andy's got a very, very short period of time in which he can enjoy this little honeymoon. We all knew that there would be one. I think that he's got a matter of weeks before the new political season starts, and people are going to get impatient for tangible results. People are going to want to see things noticeably changing, and releasing a load of prisoners and allowing the boats to carry on coming while you stand round an empty inflatable dinghy does not amount to a radical policy of the sort that is needed at this point. We're soon going to be into party conference season, and then it's going to be the run-up to the mother of all horrors of a budget. And, you know, people need to brace themselves for what's to come.
Interestingly, I don't particularly want to talk about it, but apparently Andy Burnham is under pressure from his left-wing backbenchers and all the lefties in the Labour Party to ditch the use of the Union flag, which I still anachronistically call the Union Jack, at Labour's conference in September. So that'll be something interesting to watch.
Yeah. These people, honestly,
yeah, I know.
What's wrong with them?
Well,
what is wrong with them?
They're Labour socialists, Isabel. That is the problem. I wanted to ask you about this, though. The Charlie Downs issue. The Reform UK, I think, to be fair, playing Rupert Lowe at his own game. Rupert Lowe, was it last Sunday, not the one just gone, the one before, or was it the Saturday, issuing that video offering a peace pact to Reform, but saying it was on the proviso that Nigel Farage would have to guarantee that none of the Tory defectors, Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman, Danny Kruger, were ever made cabinet secretaries or ministers in a joint administration. So we all knew that Nigel Farage or Reform UK couldn't possibly accept that. Rupert Lowe knew it as well, so it's kind of strange why he was ever making the offer. Anyway, Reform UK have kind of turned the tables on him, and essentially, I think, reading between the lines, said, well, if you think you can dictate who we're allowed to appoint to high positions, here's one for you. We won't forge a peace pact with Restore Britain until you ditch your sidekick, Charlie Downs, who stands accused of, shall we say, racism, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. So Reform say, get rid of Charlie and maybe we can talk. Do you think he will, Isabel?
No. No, there's not going to be any deal between Reform and Restore, not while Rupert Lowe is Rupert Lowe, and not while Nigel Farage is Nigel Farage and doesn't want to forgive and forget, can't forgive and forget, and most importantly, knows that Rupert Lowe is impossible to work with for Reform MPs. So it's not going to happen. And I feel like this is a bit of August stuff, isn't it? But some of the characters around Restore are uniquely, it seems to me, almost uniquely unpleasant. And, you know, I know that they've been giving Alex Phillips, our talk colleague, the most horrendous time over the weekend. The trolling, the social media abuse has been really vile. And I think that just shows the character of some of these people.
Yeah, I've advised Alex to disengage. If you respond to these people, it just encourages them.
Yeah.
But she's been to a It's not my business to dictate how she behaves, but she's been standing up for herself very impressively.
Yeah.
But my advice to Alex is it's just not worth it. Disengage.
It's not worth worrying about these people.
Exactly. Disengage. Don't respond, and they'll just go away. But that isn't in any way to criticise Alex. If she chooses to fight her corner, then respect. Good for her. That's her decision, not mine. Let's talk about this, shall we? What should we do?
So, there's so much else going on today. Reform today had a press conference, didn't they, about deporting foreign nationals, foreign national criminals, which I thought was quite interesting. And raising this suggestion that they could potentially come to agreements with other countries. I think they mentioned El Salvador, a couple of mentions of other countries which could potentially be interested in coming to some arrangement. Strikes me as an awful lot better than the idea of just letting prisoners out because we haven't got any more places.
My thing about that was what Reform have suggested, maybe do a deal with El Salvador to send our foreign prisoners there, where they can house them in those horrific prisons they've got there. But what I do like it, but whether or not you like that plan, at least Reform are trying to think laterally, what can we do about this prison release crisis?
Yeah.
Whereas our government doesn't seem to be doing anything at all. They're just saying, well, you don't understand, the prisons are full, you know, our hands are tied, we've got to keep letting them out. Well, how about you build some new prisons? Apparently there are 3 mega prisons which are completely held up in red tape because of the, the welfare of weeds and badgers and things like that. And the one prison that is being built, new prison, is a high security prison up north, 1,700 cell places. So 1,700 prisoners will not exactly solve our overcrowding problem. So we've got one prison being built for 1,700 people, nothing else being done whatsoever, nothing, no suggestions, just the government saying, well, what can you do? We've just got to let them out. No, well, do something. It's your job. It isn't acceptable that you keep releasing ever more dangerous prisoners onto the streets. We're learning today that letting out all these prisoners, as they already have done, 5,000 more in September, will, according to analytics, result in 89,000 extra new crimes being committed. In other words, all these released prisoners will, in all likelihood, commit at least nearly 90,000 crimes. And our government just shrugs its shoulders and says, well, what can you do?
I mean, the reoffending rates are really interesting, particularly for shorter sentences. I think where people serve less than a year, the reoffending rate is in the 60s in terms of percentages, 60+% reoffending rate for shorter sentenced convicts. So what you're doing is just letting them out, only to have to pay even more taxpayers' money going all the way through the process again for them to be sent back to jail. There's another thing, which is that the UK has quite a lot of empty prisons. They are abandoned when they could actually be an awful lot, I suspect, it would be an awful lot quicker to revive these abandoned premises than it would be to build new ones from scratch. And there's one, I think it's in Devon, which has been abandoned because of some strange fears about radon or something.
Well, that's Dartmoor.
Dartmoor, that's the one.
Dartmoor is one of our most, distinctive, iconic prisons. It's been unused for several years because of this radon gas that apparently exists below the West Country, which is supposed to be
I'm just not
radioactive or something. But I just think where there's a will, they could reopen that. They could build Nightingale prisons. reasons.
Of course.
They've got to start coming up with proposals. So good for Reform for at least trying to think of something, because our government just shrugging its shoulders. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. But don't worry, Isabel. The Prime Minister is in listening mode, so I'm sure everything is going to be just fine. Isabel, great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. Great start to the show. Thanks to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Next up, we're going to talk to the chairman of Migration Watch, Alp Mehmet. And we'll talk about this massive mega boat that came across yesterday, and this enormous contingent of illegal foreigners who came across this channel, the English Channel, this weekend alone. It's now up to about 3,000 migrants crossing the channel illegally since Andy Burnham waltzed into Downing Street unhindered by democracy. So we'll talk to the chairman of Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet, about all of this next. Stay tuned.
Sex basis on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Before we go over to Alp Mehmet from Migration Watch UK, this is a voice note from Shirley on the migrants.
The line that is coming out from every Labour minister at the moment is that the numbers of migrants is coming down. They don't have a shred of evidence for this, and I can guarantee that if they were deporting anyone, it would be all over the media to show us what they were doing. There's nothing. They are just telling us these lies constantly in the hope that enough suckers will believe it and vote for them again because they think that they've corrected the issue. We all know that they haven't. They are absolute liars, and we all know we're living it. We can see it with our eyes. Migration is going through the roof under Burnham.
Yeah, Shirley, where the lie is that, I mean, the truth is that so far this year, the number of migrants coming across the Channel illegally on not-so-small boats has gone down. But everybody knows that the reason for that is it's been unusually windy for the first 6 months of the year. On the Channel. So the weather has not been conducive to asylum seeker crossings. Now the weather's turned into a mill pond. They're coming across in their droves. So the lie is that the reason for the reduction in numbers is the government's brilliant hardline measures. That isn't the reason. It's the weather. Now the weather is favourable to the boats. The Channel's a mill pond. Guess what? Something like 800 came across this weekend alone. So they're back in business now, the weather's better. That's the lie. And the numbers have come down, but they're going to restore now. They're going to get back to their previous level because the weather's friendly. Let's go over, let's talk about this to the chairman of Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet. Welcome, Alp.
To be here, Kevin.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. First of all, your thoughts on this mega boat, this 230 strong boat. I mean, we call them small boats. This isn't small. It's a grotesque looking thing. It's incredibly long and therefore incredibly dangerous. A boat like that, if a significant wave comes across, will either fold it in two or just tip it over. That said, that is massive. 230 people. The biggest boat before that was 2 Fridays ago, 165 on board. So these new mega dinghies, these not-so-small boats, are the new face of the migrant cross-channel crisis, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it's been a trend. It's been happening, as you say, it was quite a big one. Not quite as big a couple of weeks ago. Now we've got this one with 230. And my feeling is that they will continue to get as big as they can get away with. I mean, why wouldn't they when they're charging 100, 1,500, 2,000 pounds to each one to jump into one of these things? The 700 or so that we've had over the past few days, that's over £1 million, for goodness sake, for just one dinghy. So they're disposable. These dinghies are disposable, and there's plenty more where that came from, and they will continue to get bigger if they can get away with it.
Yeah, I estimate, I seem to recall that the 165-strong boat from a couple of Fridays ago would have netted, apparently, the people smugglers around about £300,000, one crossing. So this bigger boat, we're probably talking about £500,000. That's how much the migrant or the people smugglers are making from these mega boats. What do you make, Alp, of our Prime Minister, our Home Secretary, staring us in the face and saying, well, the numbers are down, nothing to see here. Because the numbers are down, Labour's plan to stop the boats is obviously working. That's, in my view, that's either gaslighting on an epic scale or just straight lying.
Or both. You're absolutely right. What I look at is how many journalists, reporters of one form or another have gone over and found for themselves, politicians for that matter, found for themselves that there are thousands of people on the other side milling around. Now, we hear from the government that the French have turned back 46,000 or whatever. Yeah, but what happens after that? Where do they go to? Do they keep tabs on them? All that happens, they're stopped. Some of them are stopped at that point, and then they're released into the French community to try again. I think really it's worse. That this is almost criminal. The fact that the government is pretending that they're dealing with it, that they're on top of it. They're not. And until we can show that it doesn't work, however big the boat, once they come, They are detained. If they haven't got any documents to establish who they are, then they're sent back. That's what our law says. That's what Section 24 of the Immigration Act 1971 says, that you have to establish satisfactorily your identity and nationality. If you can't do that, then our law doesn't say it's okay, you can take the word of the migrant. No, we can't. Doing that puts lives at risk. We don't know who we're letting in. And not only do we let them in, but then they're free to join the underworld, the criminal fraternity, and make even more money for the smugglers and the gangs.
Absolutely.
This is really serious.
It is serious. Let's talk about the French police's role in all of this, because increasingly we are building up this picture of les gendarmes having received the best part of £1 billion from Britain over the past few years to patrol their own beaches, stop the migrants, stop the boats. We're building up this picture. They basically stand there smoking gaulois, waving the migrants au revoir. And we learnt last weekend from the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, who went over there to talk to some of these cops and migrants, and the French cops said, well, that's what we've been told to do. We've been told, don't stop them, just warn them that the 21-mile voyage they're about to embark on is dangerous. So that much we know. Now, so let's talk about the lack of activity on the part of the French, but there's one story that emerged over the weekend that makes this even more poignant, even more worrying. These really disturbing pictures of a gang of, loads of young male migrants, sort of manhandling, jostling this tiny little baby in swaddling clothes onto this waiting not so small boat. It's just literally a load of blokes in their 20s and this little baby. And I'm thinking, as they walk past with this poor little mite in their arms, at the very least, maybe the French police could step forward and saying, look, you're not taking that baby across. It's too dangerous. And yet they just watched this kid, this little kid, this baby, being carried onto this lethal dinghy. The French police's lack of involvement in all of this, their lack of activity, I think is extremely disgraceful and dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Dangerous. It's dangerous for those crossing. It's especially dangerous for the kids. Not that there are many of them, I have to say. It's dangerous for the women who haven't got the strength, and very often they're even assaulted on these boats. If the French were serious about stopping this, and I can't believe that the French people don't want illegal immigration to stop, whether it's them escaping into Britain or entering France in the first place, or entering the EU. Well, one way of stopping it happening in northwestern France, in Calais and Dunkirk and the rest of the area, is to actually accept them back. It's easy to stop them. We know where they're coming in. You pick them up, you return them back where they came from. If we did that, and then the French actually joined in with the rest of their EU buddies and gathered them up and sent them back to their countries or to a third country, then it would stop. That's the only way it's going to stop. And as I say, as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly legal.
And why doesn't our Prime Minister, and indeed the previous Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, why don't they actually think about this sort of thing? Why is Andy Burnham's approach to this, never mind the migrant crisis, I'm going to bring bus fares down? Why won't he think like you've just been thinking out? Why won't he actually address the migrant crisis, confront it and try to come up with solutions, as opposed to standing there on the white cliffs of Dover and basically telling us nothing to see here, Labour's plan is working? Why won't he get to grips with this? What's wrong with him?
Ultimately, the reason why they're not doing it is because they're totally wrapped up. They've been conquered by the very ideology, nonsensical ideology that they've put in place. It's very difficult now for them to say, hey, we're wrong. We've been wrong all along. We're going to do something about it. It just isn't going to happen. And I'm afraid this has been the case way when this all started in 2018, and it was Sajid Javid who declared an emergency and broke his holiday to come back. Since then, we've had, apart from the odd exception, Suella Braverman, I think, is one of them, there have been very few Home Secretaries who've been prepared to get a grip and, having got a grip, have their Prime Minister back them. That's where we are at the moment. I think that Shabana Mahmood, there's a lot of things that she would like to do. I don't think she would go far enough. But nevertheless, I think that she would be prepared to go the full distance if she had the backing from her Prime Minister. And she most certainly won't get that. That's why we are where we are. Why is it that the Poles, that the Greeks, like the Italians, the Lithuanians, they can grab these people and say, whoa, sorry, we don't want you, go back. And we're reluctant to do it. We're too shy to do it. I think it's a disgrace.
It is. I couldn't have put it better myself. An absolute disgrace, an ongoing shambles. I just can't believe that. Andy Burnham wants to be popular. He wants to win the next election. I've got some good advice for him. You solve the migrant crisis, and you'll waltz back in. You'll absolutely swim the next election. But he doesn't seem to want to do it, like his predecessor, like all Tory governments. I just don't understand it, Alp. But great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch UK. Why? Let me know what you think. Why does our Prime Minister, like his predecessor, like his Home Secretary, Shabana, why don't they really want to solve the migrant crisis? They clearly don't. He's not even addressing it. Come up with no plans. Just tell us he just tells us our plan is working. Your plan isn't working. We can see it. There's a boat with 230 people just crossed the channel. It's not working, Andy. Stop lying to us. What are you going to do about it? What should he do about it, folks? Let me know. 03444 99 1000. After the break, going to be joined by former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley, and he's going to take us up to the top of the hour, and we're going to go through a number of stories that I think are well worth discussing. Next up, Farage is horrified by police bungles as a clear firebomb attack on his home was dismissed as just a burglary. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley is in the studio. Before we get to Peter, here is a voice note from Tristan on the migrant crisis.
The numbers may be going down, but loads of them are already here. The fact is that we want it stopped. And the thing is they're not really getting that. It has to stop. and they're not making any effort to stop it, not making any effort to deport them, no effort to cancel the ECHR, no effort at all. All we get is numbers are going down. They're not actually doing anything. The only way the numbers have gone down a bit this year is because of the weather. That's it. The worse the weather is, the boats go down. But when the weather's like this and the sea's calm, nothing's going to stop it. It's just relentless.
Thank you, Tristan. Peter Blexey is in the studio. Welcome, Peter. I want to ask you first that Nigel Farage, big story breaking over the weekend. Nigel Farage and indeed Reform UK have been, and I quote, left horrified by police bungles. Last April 2025, there was an apparent firebombing attack on Nigel Farage's home, his personal home. It didn't come to anything because the fire went out. The police subsequently dismissed that as just a burglary. Now, it's a little difficult for legal reasons, but if I can try to explain it. Because of what's happened to Anne Widdecombe, we can't get into that case too much because a man has been accused, has been charged with her murder. But because of the implications of that murder, police have reopened the investigation into the alleged firebombing at Nigel Farage's house to see if there is any connection. Now, I don't want to talk about the connection, but what I do want to talk to you about, Peter, is why would the police, now accepting this was a firebomb, back in April 2025, dismiss it just as a burglary? Because Richard Tice, quoted in the press over the weekend, has put forward the suggestion that the police do not take threats against Reform UK MPs seriously.
Simple answer to all of the above. Because quite frankly, we've got some pathetic police officers carrying warrant cards, useless detectives, clearly not well trained enough, not working alongside experienced detectives to show them the way, poorly managed and supervised, probably by supervising officers who've climbed that greasy pole of promotion so quickly in order to get away from frontline policing that they know very, very little about it. And there's a couple of stories that really link into this, please, if I may. OK, yes, let's just rewind. April of last year. An incendiary device is pushed through the letterbox of Nigel Farage's London home, and there was also evidence to show that somebody had tried to force the front door. Now, of course, if you are unfortunate enough to be a victim of burglary or have your car stolen or something similar in this day and age, in all likelihood, all you will get is a crime reference number. You will not get a thorough, prompt, professional investigation into that crime. And it seems that Mr. Farage was no different from so many other unfortunate victims of crime, because the initial investigation into that incendiary device through the letterbox and an attempt to force that front door resulted in no lines of inquiry to pursue, so they wrote it off. What absolute, utter, abject nonsense that a man as prominent as Nigel Farage could be the victim of that kind of crime at his property and it would not be investigated to the nth degree. Well, they have investigated it rather more thoroughly as a result of something that you said earlier, and as a result, guess what? They found a valid line of inquiry. There is now an independent Office of Police Conduct investigation into the actions of the first officer that attended Nigel Farage's home, because clearly it would appear that that officer did not pick up the line of inquiry. That line of inquiry is now being pursued by counter-terrorism police, who Mr. Farage has spoken to. He gave a press conference today and spoke about that. and let's just see what that might bring forth.
Indeed. Reform Deputy Leader Richard Tice will be in the studio, by the way, in about 20 minutes, or he'll be on the show. He said only recently have the authorities woken up to the abuse and intimidation I and other Reform MPs have had, despite plenty of real examples that we have noticed. For too long, the threats we have faced have not been taken seriously. The fact that the police have referred themselves to the IOPC speaks for itself. They recognise they have messed up. Yeah, this IOPC thing, I am sick to death. I'm sure you are too. Coppers, they immediately realise, oh Christ, we've really screwed up here. And then they immediately, there's all that cover-up. But we have referred ourselves to the police complaints department, the IOPC. Yeah. So they immediately say, we've reported ourselves, so that's all right. No, it isn't. I'm not confident about the IOPC, and we need to get a very external body investigating the police as opposed to semi-internal. But this, it's okay. No, we don't have to discuss this. We've referred ourselves to the IOPC. That should not be the end of the discussion, right?
Well, first and foremost, the IOPC has proven time and time again over a number of years that it's just not good enough. In fact, I'd go as far to say it's not fit for purpose. Investigations have either taken an inordinately long time to be completed, or in the case of firearms officer NX121, they decided that they were going to persecute him and not prosecute him with the connivance of the Crown Prosecution Service, and there are many, many more examples of them being absolutely appalling. But yes, when the police say, we have referred ourselves, they're trying to kid us that they've done some kind of soul cleansing, like they've gone to the confessional, closed the door and told the priest everything that they've done. But of course, that's far from it. That's not it in the slightest. They're just trying to hoodwink us into thinking that, oh, wasn't that good of them? Yeah. They've discovered that they were acted a bit below par there, and they've then referred themselves. It's semantics. It's performative. It's just drivel.
Yeah, we're so pure and wonderful. Look, we reported ourselves. Yeah, but you do it every time, and then nothing happens. You should take the IOPC about as seriously as when the coppers announce that after an IOPC verdict, lessons have been learned, because they never, ever have been. We'll talk about a little bit about that sort of thing after the break. Peter's going to stay with us, so stick around and we'll be back after these messages.
Sex basis on biological sex. Yeah. And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley. Let's get your view as a citizen of this country rather than as an ex-copper. Labour, according to a new minister who's been tasked with the very important EU reset that only the government wants, that most people don't want because we didn't vote to have any kind of reset. Either way, this guy, we'll get his name in a second, his name's Hamish Falconer. He's the minister in charge of the EU reset, and he has been talking about seeking deeper relations with the EU. Why do they keep doing this? We voted to leave the EU.
Well, I'll give you a big clue as to why Hamish Falconer, MP for Lincoln, is so keen to renegotiate some form of reset. You know who his dad is?
Yeah,
Charlie Faulkner, Lord Faulkner.
Course.
Do you remember Labour grandee of decades standing?
Yeah, Tony Blair's flatmate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that tells you all you need to know. Because every time he opens his mouth, I'd put a pretty pound on the fact that he's echoing the thoughts of his dad and Blair and all that kind of stuff. He might say otherwise, but I'm pretty much sure I'm right. So, of course...
He's a Nepo baby,
but
yeah?
Indeed. But this feeds in to when you had Alp Mehmet on the show before I came in, when you're discussing the illegal immigrant crisis, the boats, the lot of it. It all... You can join the dots. It's in the DNA of the Labour Party. This Labour government, Andy Burnham, inch their way back towards rejoining Europe. They'll say, oh, no, we're sticking to the manifesto pledges. Yeah, righto. We know this government, the Labour Party, will want to get back into Europe as soon as they possibly can. That, I think, is blatantly obvious. And this now, he's talking about things about the freedom of movement for young people and issues regarding student fees for young people. Oh, while we're on the matter of student fees, what country has the biggest amount of defaulters on repaying student loans that our nation has foolishly granted to them? It is, drumroll, Romania. Now, there's a surprise, eh?
That is a shock, yeah.
Yeah, and it just... Right, so this whole thing about getting closer to Europe, because that's what they want to do. Their ultimate game will be to reverse Brexit and get us part of that failing federal conglomerate of people that are now having massive fallouts amongst themselves, particularly over immigration, in light of what happened in Ceuta and what's happening in Italy. You know, it's obvious to see.
Yeah, it really is. Let's move back to a police issue. We're going to revisit this story a little later in the show, but I want to get your take on it, Peter. I mean, this is the shocking story of a prolific sex offender and rapist, Simon Levy. Another one of these situations where no doubt the police have referred themselves to the IOPC. They should refer themselves to the justice system and go to jail for this. It's extraordinary. So this guy, there are so many details, but in essence, in November 2024, British Transport Police arrested him over alleged sexual assaults on the Underground. Love to go onto the tube system and sexually assault women. They searched him, found an Oyster card stolen from a bus driver, and they gave that Oyster card back to him. He used it 4 months later to travel to and from a building where he murdered his victim, Carmenza Valencia Trujillo, 53 years old. So they had, when they arrested him in 2024 and let him go with the stolen tube pass, They should have known that in 2021 he was jailed for 3 years for sexual assault at a party in Notting Hill, the Notting Hill Carnival, in fact. 2022, he sexually assaulted a prison officer while inside Brixton Prison. 2024, arrested on suspicion of rape, recalled, released again when his licence was out. November 24, arrested for 4 sexual assaults in the Tube. They needed an ID parade. They organised it 5 months later. In all this time, this guy's wandering around raping and murdering women because the police couldn't get their act together and realise he should be behind bars. What the hell is going on there?
The same stolen travel pass, which had been stolen from a bus driver, was returned to him on another occasion by the Metropolitan Police. So both of these police forces were absolutely pathetic. I go back to using that word about pathetic detective word that I mentioned the moment I came on here. This is a fine example of it. And I'm not being flippant or disrespectful to the victims here. I'm certainly not. But it is akin to handing back a getaway car to an armed robber. That's how ridiculous and pathetic and stupid it is. They knew when they handed it back the first time that he had a pattern of offending on the underground. So why on earth would you hand somebody a pass which they used to travel on what? Guess what? Oh yes, the underground. You need to debrief that pass. Besides, any check on it would have revealed that it was stolen. Excuse me, filthy, disgusting, murderous, horrible piece of trash, Simon Levy. Are you a bus driver? No. So why are we going to return a bus pass to you? These passes give you chapter and verse down to the second, including the date and the location of every time they are used. They provide very, very powerful evidence. And twice the stupid, idiotic, pathetic police returned it to him.
Exactly right. Somebody's posted on Twitter, if only this guy had posted something nasty on social media, he would have been immediately arrested, put in prison, and none of this would have happened. This is a story of police prioritising the wrong crimes, isn't it? I mean, if someone posts something nasty, as racist or whatever, on social media, they're around their house in seconds flat, warning them, telling them what to do and all that kind of stuff, whereas when you have a dangerous rapist on the loose, which a cursory check would have proved, they don't seem to put this high up their priority list, just shrug their shoulders and off he goes. Unbelievable.
But let me quote some other examples where pathetic police detective work has led to the death of people. So not only this monster, Simon Levy. Remember Simon Port, the serial killer in East London? A number of gay men would be alive today if it wasn't for pathetic policing. What about Valdo Callaghan, that butcher who snuffed out 3 wonderful lives and seriously injured another number of other people in Nottingham? And what about law enforcement failures in the case of Axel Rudabakana? We have lost beautiful children, wonderful, talented students, a man on the cusp of his retirement, and many other thoroughly good, decent people because of police mistakes. And they say sorry, and lessons have been learned. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, and they say we've referred ourselves to the IOPC. It is a disgrace. Big thanks to Peter Blackseed. Richard Tice next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to be looking at the Cabinet Secretary, the deep far left socialist Cabinet Secretary, the lefty who's just taken over from Crazy Ed Miliband as our Nut Zero Secretary. By all accounts, she's even further left than Red Ed. Very, very serious socialist. Miata Farnborough is her name. Very social, very Labour, yeah, class warrior. Yeah, one little thing though, all three of her children go to very expensive public schools. I haven't been so shocked since I heard that that other great veteran class warrior, Diane Abbott, the Labour stalwart, also sent her kid to a public school. You know, so this lot, hypocrisy central. They really are. You know, it's don't do as I do, do as I say. We'll send our kids. We're in the government. We'll send our kids to the top public schools, but for the rest of you, you're not allowed to. And in fact, we'll bring in VAT charges that will cause all the public schools to have to close down. Hopefully not the ones we send our kids to. We shouldn't have to put up with this kind of hypocrisy. We really shouldn't. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. We'll talk about Miata in a little while. First of all, we're going to go to Richard Tice in just a second, but first here is a voice note from Rob on the migrants.
These Labour politicians banging on about the boats, yeah, and down 40%. Well, this is my analogy. I eat 10 meals a day, but I've decided to just have 5 meals a day, but double up on the portions. So with statistics, I've halved my meals a day, and that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, the boats, there might be a few less of them coming over, but there's more people on them and them bigger. Yeah, they can say, oh, we've got it down to 40%, this and that, but we ain't stupid. We can see through it, we can see through the lies, and I'm sick of it. They're all the same, Conservative Labour, liars.
Well said, Rob. Well, let's go over to my next guest. He's the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, MP for Boston and Skegness, and he is Reform UK's Business, Trade and Energy spokesman. Richard Tice, welcome, Richard.
Well, good afternoon, Kevin. And I just must carry on this hypocrisy point because allegedly this far-left socialist, Miata Farnborough, allegedly her husband is actually a serious capitalist who is a trader with a city hedge fund. And that is why, allegedly, that they can afford the extra 20% on independent school fees that they don't seem to care about anybody else. And they don't seem to care that over 100 independent schools have closed, over 30,000 children have had their schooling disrupted and have to move schools because of those closures, and thousands of teachers in those schools have lost their jobs, as well as modestly paid or low-paid support staff. I mean, it is disgusting as well as hypocritical. I agree with you. Of course, Miata is not here to defend herself. I wish she was in many, many ways. Ask her on. But she's not. No, we have. Don't worry about that. But it is classic. You know, remember Diane Abbott did the same. These dyed-in-the-wool, far-left socialists telling us all about their vision of an egalitarian society, no privilege. You don't buy your way into special positions. Oh, unless you happen to be in the government and you want to send your kids to the best public schools, then that's okay, but it's not okay for the rest of us. As you say, Richard, that kind of hypocrisy is not only obviously deeply morally wrong, it is also disgusting to behold. It really is. Yeah. Let's move on. Big story over the weekend. You were slightly involved, but
I've got to be slightly careful here. You'll understand this for legal reasons, because in some ways, this does allude to the sad, tragic murder of Anne Widdecombe. And the reason we have to be careful is a man has been arrested and is charged with that murder. But there were ramifications from that murder. And those ramifications seem to have inspired the police, Scotland Yard, to reopen the investigation into what was a clear firebomb attack on Nigel Farage's home a year ago, in April 2025, more than a year ago. They dismissed that as just a burglary, where there was a clear incendiary device put through his letterbox. Luckily, it didn't go off. But it clearly wasn't just a burglary. And the police are now saying, well, in view of the fact that there possibly is some kind of, or there's reason to suspect there might be some kind of plot against Reform UK, we need to reopen this case, and we now accept that perhaps it was more than just a burglary. Well, better late than never, I suppose, but it is pretty worrying that it takes so long for the police to wake up to what was obvious to them in the first place, that Nigel Farage's home, albeit unsuccessfully, was subjected to a firebomb attack.
Yeah, I'll be very careful, but what the police did on Friday late afternoon, I think it was the police released a statement where they said they were re-looking at this incident and that they were referring themselves, and this was counter-terrorism unit, they were referring themselves to the Independent Office of Police Conduct. Now, that is an extremely rare event for counter-terrorism to voluntarily refer themselves for investigation. So I think that tells your listeners and viewers a lot. That's the first point. The second point is that when Nigel, some weeks ago, which he hadn't spoken about this incident back in April 2025 until, as I say, some weeks ago, earlier this summer. When he referred to it, many members of the woke mainstream left-leaning media essentially called Nigel a liar. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe the incident took place. They thought it was a distraction technique from other issues. I do hope all of those journalists and those editors of those newspapers and those broadcast organisations offer Nigel a very serious, heartfelt apology in print and on air. Because what they did, said and inferred, again, I'm going to use the word for the second time in this interview, was disgusting and frankly revolting.
And you were quoted in the papers over the weekend, Richard, basically accusing the police of not taking threats to the safety of Reform UK MPs and luminaries seriously. Do you feel that the police, when they get...
absolutely. We've been very concerned for some time, and I've just touched on the incident from April 2025. A number of us have had other incidents. I had an incident just before Christmas, which involved armed police having to arrest someone in the middle of Parliament Square, who was making me feel as though I was under imminent threat of being stabbed, frankly. And I raised it with the authorities, and nothing was done, and a variety of other things. And so, frankly, I just said, enough's enough, and things have got worse, and culminated in the absolute horror of Anne's murder. And as I said at the end of the article in the Sunday Telegraph, I think it was, we want our police and our counter-terrorism to be the best in the world. We want them to do a best job. We want to trust them. And so we're all human. Mistakes get made. I guess I'm going to say, Kevin, better late than never. Let's be optimistic and hope now that the safety and security of all MPs who might be under threat is taken more seriously. And I say that with real awareness that particularly female MPs in other parties get an absolutely horrendous time. And it is, I regret to say, Kevin, that it is getting worse, I think, for all MPs, to the point where lots of people say, actually, do you know what, it's not worth the candle.
Why do you think, though, Richard, articulate why it is you think that the police don't take threats to the safety of Reform MPs seriously? Why do you think that is?
Because I think there are people in positions of authority, and I'm not talking about the front line men and women officers. I'm talking about people in various parts of the authority. They don't like a disruptor in the political scene. They rather like the status quo, and they may not like our particular series of proposals to save this great country from cultural, social and financial oblivion. And so they just haven't taken it seriously. Don't worry, it's reform. And, well, you know, I think everybody's had a very grim, nasty, serious wake-up call, and we are where we are.
Last question on this issue. Do you personally, Richard, especially considering the incident you're talking about outside of Parliament, which I've heard before, where a guy tried to attack you, do you personally, you know, feel frightened?
No, no one likes to feel frightened, but there are moments, and one just has to deal with that. There's a, you know, inevitably, lots of people in public life, in the public eye, you know, there are moments, and one just has to deal with that the best one can. But I think it's fair to say that it's not getting any easier.
I can see that point. Let's move on and let's discuss something about which I think a lot of people are relieved that we have Reform UK to actually dare to discuss it, and we're talking about the migrant crisis. I want to get your response, Richard, to this massive, I mean, we can't call it a small boat, it's this mega-dinghy, huge, long thing with 230 migrants on board. That is huge. We estimate that the people smugglers on that one boat, that one voyage, might have netted about £500,000, £500,000, because the 165 strong mega-dinghy that came across 2 Fridays ago, which hitherto was the biggest, that apparently netted the people smugglers 300,000. So this, now the biggest ever, 230, came across on yesterday. It was August the 9th, yes. That's the biggest. That would have made about £500,000. So massive amounts of money being made. I guess what I'm getting at here, I want to get your response to this new face of the migrant crisis. What I'm getting at is Andy Burnham, King Andy, our Prime Minister, who got into Downing Street unhindered by even a hint of democracy, he tells us, he keeps staring us in the face, actually going down to the White Cliffs of Dover to do so at one point, staring us in the face saying, migrant crosses, numbers are down, Labour's plan to stop the boats is clearly working. I'll tell you why the numbers are down. It's because it's been unusually windy for the first 6 months of the year on the English Channel. The weather now is like a mill pond, and over this past weekend alone, more than 700,000 came across. That takes Andy Burnham's personal tally since he became Prime Minister to round about 3,000 migrants. And he tells us there's nothing to see, Labour's plan is working. Is that gaslighting on an epic scale or just straight lying?
I think it's probably a combination of both. And actually, this is no longer a dinghy, Kevin. This is a cargo ship. Yes. This is literally, it is a cargo ship leaving France and coming to the UK. Who knows how big these ships, they're not dinghies, are, but, and you've made a mathematical calculation. I have to tell you that in terms of cash changing hands, I suspect the number is a fraction of that. I think the game is changing, and many of those are actually coming over essentially having forward sold their work, their slavery, their modern slavery, working in sweatshops and vape shops and Turkish barber shops, and in car washes here in the UK, and they are essentially working for criminal gangs. That's what's really going on. And as well as obviously becoming a massive burden on the state. I mean, you can do the numbers yourself, but at 40 grand per person times 230, that's a lot of people, and that's a lot of money. And that's your good listeners and viewers' money, Kevin. That's the reality.
Exactly right. And as Andy embarks on his listening tour, he's in listening mode, you know, Richard. He's told us this. I bet you he's not in listening mode if anybody goes up to him and says, "Are you going to stop the boats? How are you going to stop the boats?" I bet he doesn't listen to that, because Andy says he's a listener, but actually he only listens to people on the topics that he wants to talk about. He's got this great skill of excluding anything that's a bit awkward. So far we've had a couple of rudimentary statements on the migrant crisis along the lines of, "We've got this, it's under control." That's a lie, but nothing else. This guy listens to what he wants to listen to, and what the people actually want, he doesn't want to listen to, does he?
Of course not. I mean, the reality is that he never talks about immigration, legal or illegal. He only dropped into the White Cliffs of Dover on his way on holiday because he was so exhausted after 2 hard weeks as Prime Minister. He spent about 30 years trying to become Prime Minister. Oh, it's so difficult. Oh, I need a holiday. Oh, dear me. I mean, honestly. He drifted in to say that, you know, he's trying to get on top of it. I mean, the guy is, I call him the Burnham Babble. It's just waffle and Burnham... just bunkum. It really is.
Burnham bunkum. I like that. I think
bunkum.
This tour, I'm just predicting, will be a series of carefully choreographed photo calls in which carefully selected members of the public will ask carefully selected questions of our Prime Minister, and he will deliver a carefully scripted reply. This is just a PR assault saying, look at me, I'm the listening Prime Minister.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And here's another thing, just for your listeners and viewers to absorb. So a few weeks ago, the date for the next parliamentary recess, we were due to come back for 2.5 weeks before the conference season. We were going to go on recess after the third Prime Minister's question times on Wednesday, the 16th of September. But in order to avoid scrutiny, the Labour government have moved forward the recess to Tuesday the 15th, which means that he avoids yet another Prime Minister's question. So he'll only face 2 PM queues from the moment he was appointed PM on the 20th of July. He'll only face 2 PM queues until mid-October.
I think his aversion to scrutiny is turning into a bit of a national crisis. He's really got to allow himself to be scrutinised a little more. One last question to you, Richard, if you don't mind. Thanks for coming on. It is always a great pleasure to have you on this show. Reform UK, I mean, in a way, playing Rupert Lowe at his own game. So it was sort of 10 days ago or something like that Rupert Lowe suddenly, out of the blue, made a video offering Reform UK a peace pact, you know, to unite the right and all that, with a few clauses in that we knew Nigel Farage would never accept, nor would he be able to accept, especially the idea that he's not allowed to appoint people like Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman and Danny Kruger, who all used to be Tories. He's not allowed to appoint them as cabinet secretaries. Well, he was always going to turn that down, and Rupert Lowe knew it. Anyway, Reform UK have kind of turned the tables on him now and said, well, before we talk about a peace pact, we're going to have to ask you, Rupert, to ditch your co-founder sidekick, Charlie Downes, who stands accused of anti-Semitism and racism. Some of the things that Charlie comes out with, he did it on this station only last week. Put it this way, they test the boundaries. So do you think Rupert Lowe will accept your demand to ditch Charlie Downes?
All I know is that what was said on your station and elsewhere by the co-founder goes way beyond testing the boundaries. And we will have nothing to do with anybody who demonstrates such anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic attitudes and comments. Nothing at all, as you would expect and demand, and rightly so. So, frankly, that's just our.
That's a red line for you. Do you think
it's a massive red line, wall, mountain, as far as we're concerned.
In the real world, Richard, is there any chance of reform and restore ever?
In the real world, Kevin, frankly, if people are concerned about hard socialism and left-wing government, then people have got to vote reform, because the Tories had their chance. They talked the talk, all the waffle, but actually they broke Britain, and now Labour are bankrupting Britain. And why would you put the arsonists in charge of the fire engine? No, you need to give people with real life experience, business experience, who've been around the block, who've succeeded at things, and that's the leadership of reform. And we're not saying we're perfect. We're not saying we won't make mistakes. But I tell you what, we've got the experience to sort this country out and, bluntly, to save it from destruction.
No deal with restore, then?
Well, I'm just saying, Kevin, if people look at our respective track records, and if you want serious people to sort out this country, there's only one person to vote for, and that's reform.
Good to have you on the show, Richard. As I say, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Richard Tice, MP, Deputy Leader of Reform UK there. Let me know what you think about what he was saying. No deal with restore, clearly. 03444 99 1000. We are going to talk about grotesque expenditure on the part of this government yet again. Next, that is a guy called Sam Lister. He is the Whitehall Mandarin that Andy Burnham has appointed to the lofty position of running number 10 North. Is he a northerner? Does he live in the north? No. He lives in a £2.2 million townhouse in London's fashionable Islington, where all the lefties live, where Tony Blair and Gordon Brown used to hang out. That's where he lives, but he's commuting up to Manchester every week, and he's staying in a luxury hotel while he is there to run number 10 North. So you are paying for his expenses travelling up there, his expenses staying in a flash hotel while he's there, all to run number 10 North. He doesn't even live in the north. He's commuting from North London. Maybe that's what Andy Burnham actually means. Number 10 North London. We'll talk about that horror next. Stay tuned.
Sex spaces on biological sex. Yeah. And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Give me a call. Why isn't the Prime Minister listening? He says he's in listening mode. Why isn't he listening to us when we say, could you please stop the boats? Why won't he listen to us? Why is he not interested in stopping the boats? 03444991000. Also, what do you think is the point of Andy Burnham's listening tour of Britain? What's it about? It's costing a lot of money just so he can... It's a series of photo calls so he can look good. Oh, look, I'm the listening Prime Minister. Yeah, great. What's the point of it? 03444991000. Plus, Labour is seeking deeper, even deeper relations with the EU. He wants to get more and more into bed with the EU. Closer relations, even more. The EU reset means we're all but rejoining the EU in all but name. What do you reckon? 03444991000. Didn't we vote for precisely the opposite? Not to get into deeper relations with the EU, but in fact to sever our relations with the EU. I think that's what we voted for in 2016, unless I'm much mistaken. Why is this government ignoring us, ignoring that vote? 03444991000. Let's talk more about this revolting expense that our socialist Prime Minister seems to be ploughing through to achieve his wonderful vision. This involves No 10 North. Let's go straight over to the Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, John O'Connell. Hi, John.
Hello, Kevin.
This is the story of Sam Lister, hitherto a shady Whitehall Mandarin, works in the civil service, in the heart of the civil service in Whitehall, in Westminster. So this guy's name's Sam Lister. And it emerges that he is the chosen one. He is the one who's been given the very special job of running Andy Burnham's mysterious No 10 North. None of the rest of us can work out what the hell that is supposed to be, but a load of people working there. This guy, Sam Lister, he's gone up there. Turns out he's commuting from his £2.2 million London town hall house in fashionable Islington, commuting every week, going up there, staying in the very expensive Deansgate Hotel there, lovely swimming pool and club on the 23rd floor if he's interested, and then coming back at the weekend. So add to that every time Andy Burnham goes up there, he usually will get the Prime Ministerial jet. That runs at around about £10,000 to £15,000 a flight, plus the fact that squads of SPADs, political advisors, civil servants, various security staff will have to schlep up and down the M1 every time he goes there, or by train, plus the fact that some civil servants, quite a few civil servants, are being offered generous relocation packages to move to Manchester to work in No 10 North. So this little whim of our Prime Minister, can I have No 10 North please, is costing a fortune. And in the case of Simon Lister, the Mandarin who's running it, that is frankly a grotesque misuse of taxpayers' money, allowing this guy to commute to Manchester to run No 10 North. The whole thing is a grotesque misuse of taxpayers' money, I would contend. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think it goes to show, if you're taking a senior civil servant from London and planting them up to the north, it goes to show that the whole thing's a gimmick to start with. It shows that you don't trust that you've got talented civil servants up in the north to make the best decisions for the north, or whatever this was supposed to be. let's have it right. This is a gimmick that is supposed to make Andy Burnham look good on social media, and we can tell that by some of the first hires that went online for the number 10 North were largely to do with social media account managers, social media content producers. This is all about Andy Burnham's social media game, and it doesn't do anything at all to solve the most pressing problems that this country has, and problems it does have. And you just mentioned one, the boats crisis. We'll mention another, the cost of energy. We'll mention another, how high taxes are, businesses struggling under the yoke of regulations. This country has got enormous problems, and whether or not we make decisions from Manchester or from London and quibbling over, where we're going to send Andy Burnham on a Friday is the least of our worries. And you mentioned the EU as well. Let's not forget the EU used to do exactly this. They used to shuffle their parliament down to Strasbourg every now and then at enormous cost. So these things come at quite a big cost. When we see parts of the public sector relocated away from London, what you tend to want to see is that you save money because you sell expensive real estate, you genuinely relocate it out of London. This is nothing but, it seems to be nothing more than burnishing Andy Burnham's TikTok account, frankly.
Yeah, and it's costing us taxpayers a lot of money. I'm thinking he's just embarking on his alleged listening tour of Britain. Well, that in itself, I would suggest, is just a series of photo calls to make him look good, but extremely expensive photo calls. The Prime Minister schlepping around Britain with all that entails, all of the staff who have to go with him, all staying in hotels, all of their transport, that in itself will cost a fortune. We'll be talking more than $1 million, I'd suggest. So even that, when he says, oh, I'm in listening mode, I'm going to go around the country and all that. Well, yeah, but it's a pointless exercise. And why don't you think about what it's going to cost us? Do we want to see the Prime Minister taking our taxpayers' pounds and spending it on photo calls? No, not really. He's got a kind of cavalier attitude to taxpayers' money, this guy, hasn't he?
And to scrutiny. This is all happening while Parliament's in recess, of course. He's had not one bit of proper scrutiny and tends to avoid it from the media so far. What we're obviously seeing, anyone can tell you what family-owned businesses, what cafes, what pubs, what hairdressers, what farmers are thinking about what this government's done since they were elected in 2024 to their tax bills, to the cost of employing young people in their local area. This is very obvious. You don't need to go on any listening tour to know exactly what the problems are we're facing. Why do we have energy costs that are, in the industrial sector that are 4 times the cost of that than America? This is not something that you need to get on a bus and go and photograph yourself talking or pretending to talk to people. We know what these problems are. We need to get on and solve them. Otherwise, we're going to be, continuing down our spiral of decline that we've been going in for the last few decades.
Indeed. But this government, so far the signs are that what he's going to do, he's announced all these initiatives, which we know are going to cost a lot of money if he ever brings them in. For 850 million there, 450 million there, money all over the place. He's announced way over £1 billion worth of initiatives. He keeps vaguely saying, oh yeah, they're costed. Yeah, I'll tell you, they are costed insofar as he fully intends to tax us to pay for them. When he gets to that point, and we all have to pay more tax to indulge his fantasies about social care systems and bus fares, he's going to find that his popularity may plummet a bit. Wouldn't you agree, John?
When when it comes down to who pays the bills, when people realise it will come out of their pockets, that's when reality will hit. Taxpayers Alliance research recently found that the national debt's likely to have gone over £3 trillion now. £3 trillion.
I tell you, that costs. I looked this up. Our national debt, now it's gone over £3 trillion, as your excellent organisation established. To service that debt costs this nation £3,488 a second. Nearly £3,500 a second. That is what we are having to pay just to service this debt. Not to pay it back, but to pay the interest. That is shocking, isn't it?
Absolutely. Several times over our defence budget in an uncertain world. We want to be spending more on defence, and we can't because we're hampered with this debt interest bill. And it gets to the root of the problem, Kevin. Spending is far too high, and all we've heard so far are more spending promises. We're spending way too much on welfare, way too much on the NHS. We keep chucking money into a black hole, a system that needs reform rather than just more money chucked at it. And until politicians get serious, rather than, talking about a few pence here and a few pence there, he was talking today about subscriptions, okay, fine, whatever, but, can we get to grips with the welfare bill so that we can deliver meaningful tax cuts for families and businesses across the country? That's how we're going to solve the big problems. How can we drive down energy costs in a way that isn't sort of fiddling at the edges, in a way that genuinely drives it down for energy-intensive businesses? If you think about heating and lighting a pub, for instance, or having the gas stove on as you're cooking dinners for everybody in a restaurant, they're the real problems that people face when they're, trying to create economic growth and get jobs and prosperity going. They're the real issues. And like I said, jumping on a bus and taking a few TikToks is not going to solve any of that.
You're absolutely right, John. Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. John O'Connell, Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance there. I mean, seriously, this guy, it's all photo calls, it's all publicity stunts, and he's not getting to grips with the reality of what's going on in this country. What do you think about the fact that the guy who runs No 10 North is basically doing it from his townhouse in North London? £2.2 million house in Islington. He commutes up at your expense, at my expense, taxpayers' expense, on a Monday, checks into the very exclusive Deansgate Hotel, enjoys the lovely facilities there, club, restaurant, pool on the 23rd floor, lovely. Panoramic views of Manchester, that's great, isn't it? Then he commutes back on a Friday. What do you think about that? So that costs us a fortune. You can rest assured there'll be other staff working in No 10 North who have to commute as well. Lots of them. He spends 15 grand every time he flies up there on the Prime Ministerial jet, old Burnham. The cost of his little vanity project is revolting. It's massive. What is going on? 0344 499 1000. Wouldn't you like him to spend the money on something better? Like stopping the boats. It's a thought, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you think. Next up, we're going to talk to Chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, former head teacher Chris McGovern. Ask him what he thinks about this socialist class warrior, the far left, new net zero secretary Miatta Farnborough. Pioneer of the Labour Party, the Labour movement of the people. Well, she's such a socialist, such a bastion of Labour principles, egalitarian principles. She sends all three of her children to very expensive private schools. What kind of hypocrisy is that? 0344 499 1000. That next, stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, you will have noticed, well, she's gone now, but the former Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said about her class warrior attack on private schools, public schools, shoving VAT back onto their bills, so a lot of parents could no longer afford their school fees, and as a result, a lot of private public schools have closed. That is the ongoing class warfare that we tend to see from Labour governments. At least one of the cabinet perhaps has mixed feelings about that. She's Miata Farnborough. Turns out she's the new net zero secretary, even more far left, even more fundamentalist about the climate crisis than Ed Miliband, Red Ed. Even more left-wing than Red Ed. Mia Farnborough, well, she takes a little break from her political principles, it seems, when it comes to her own children, all three of whom, it transpires, attend very expensive private schools. Isn't that special? Isn't that classic Labour hypocrisy? Let's talk to Chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, former head teacher himself, Chris McGovern. It is classic, isn't it, Chris? It reminds me of, do you remember Diane Abbott did exactly the same, this great veteran campaigner for Labour-style egalitarian policies. When it came to her own kids, she sent him straight to a public school, a private school. Same deal, it turns out, for Miata Farnborough, not once but three times. All three of her children are at very expensive private schools. It's very amusing, that level of hypocrisy. It's also fairly disgusting to perceive, isn't it?
What you need to understand, Kevin, is that in politics you need truth, honesty and integrity. And if you can fake that, you'll go a very long way. I recall Tony Blair, even, and he played a straight bat in a sense. He sent his kids to the London Oratory, one of the very best comprehensive schools in London, but he also brought in at night time, in the evening, tutors from Westminster School to tutor his children. So that was even worse in some ways, because he's pretending one thing and doing another. Look, of course it's hypocrisy, and I don't deny that, the woman has the right to choose, and she's probably made a wise decision for her kids, but it's not right morally. What she's telling us all to do is something different. She's saying private school, the party is saying that private schools are socially divisive and need to be basically wiped out, and yet she's using the private school avenue for her own kids, and other MPs have done the same, so it's hypocrisy, of course it is, but she's putting her own kids first. We'd all do that, but perhaps less hypocritically.
Yeah, and her husband doesn't exactly work in what you might call a socialist trade. He's a successful city trader, hedge fund founder, so he's got a few quid in the capitalist sense. And it is estimated that Ms Farnborough and her husband spend at least £50,000 a year sending their kids to these very special schools for the privileged rich. As you quite rightly say, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all. Every parent's got the choice of doing that if they can afford it. But it does stick in the craw, doesn't it, from someone who's not only a member of the Labour Party, not only a Labour Cabinet Secretary, but seen as a far-left Cabinet Secretary, possibly even more left-wing than her predecessor as Energy Secretary, Crazy Ed Miliband. So very, very left-wing, except when it comes to her own children. It is a bit sickening, isn't it?
It is, and of course she's from a privileged background. Her father was a foreign minister in Liberia, and she went to public school herself. It is pretty sickening. I think you also have to understand that in some ways, I could say to her, you know what, you're wasting your money, because actually there are some really good state schools. I mean, Tony Blair used the London Oratory. There are other good state schools. And by the way, did you know, I probably said it to you before, that the children of the street cleaners in Shanghai, they're outperforming the kids at our best private schools. And that's not my figures, that's the OECD. So although these private schools are, and look, I was the head of a private school, I'm very much in favour of private education existing. But there are good state schools as well. And you need to look at the figures internationally. Our figures don't compare well. There are state schools in other parts of the world which way outperform most of the kids in our best private schools. So, what we really need to do to solve this problem is make our state schools so good that no one would choose to send their kids to private school. And also, when we had grammar schools, we only got a few left, the private sector was dying on the vine because the grammar schools were so good. We got rid of the grammar schools. We got rid of the grammar school exam, the GCSE. So now parents want to send their kids to private school. They have every right to do so. But I do wish we could make our state sector better so that then we wouldn't need to have to rely on private schools. But this woman's made this choice. I endorse the choice, putting their own kids first. But I despise the hypocrisy.
I do too. Just a quick word from you, Chris, if you will. Explain the emptiness of what Bridget Phillipson set out to achieve. I mean, it was just a spiteful little class warrior bid to attack the private school sector. And it didn't really achieve anything at all except for closing down quite a few private schools because parents could no longer afford the fees with VAT, to no real avail except for to put more pressure on state schools if these kids now need to find places. It didn't make any sense, her campaign against private schools, public schools, except in a class warrior sense, a spiteful sense.
Yeah, it's certainly spiteful. It's certainly class warrior. It's worse than you're portraying it because you're looking at this saying, some of these private schools have closed. Let me tell you, I'm still quite closely connected with some of these schools. Many private schools today, as we're talking, are just about hanging on. They're just about surviving. And in the next 5 years, quite a few of them will go to the war. So it's just the start. The situation is going to get worse. And some of these, what's going to happen here, of course, the great private schools, the Westminsters, the Eatons, the Wickham Abbey and so forth, they're not going to go to the war. They're just going to become more and more exclusive. It's the average private school, often catering for children with special educational needs, that'll go to the war. It's still going on now. It's going to be worse next year as these schools struggle. Bridget Phillipson was a spiteful class warrior. And I recall at the Labour Party conference some years ago, local to me in Brighton, there was a teacher representative speaking to the conference, and he said, you know what, delegates, as long as one person leaves our school and votes Conservative, our education system is failing. That's the background to Bridget Phillips, and that was said publicly, it was recorded. That's where we are in education. So look, there'll be many people in the education world who will endorse what she's doing and what the Labour Party are doing, because the left have a firm grip on the schooling system. So your voice is a voice in the wilderness, because most people in education want the private school sector to fail. But people with a brain, like this particular minister for energy, she still sends her kids to private schools because she knows in her case it's the best.
Yeah, exactly right, Chris. Well, the good thing is no matter how expensive the surviving exclusive public schools get, Miata Farnborough will still be able to send her children there. So that's the good news. Apart from that, I don't see any good news. But Chris, really good to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. Chris McGovern there, former head teacher himself, chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, on the astronomical hypocrisy of far-left Cabinet Minister, Cabinet Secretary Miata Farnborough, who sends her children to the very private schools that poor old former Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, she came from a council estate, don't you know, is trying to wipe out. Weird, isn't it? Next up, we're going to return to the horrific story of prolific sex offender Simon Levy and take a look at the police horrors, the catalogue of horrific mistakes. This guy should have been behind bars instead. For something like 5 years, he was able to wander the streets, basically, committing horrific crimes, killing at least 2 women, raping and sexually assaulting many more, all thanks to the police. Didn't quite get it together to lock him up. Unbelievable. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
sex spaces on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We need to talk about prolific sex offender Simon Levy, who was not incarcerated, let go time and time again by the police, allowing him to kill 2 women and rape another, despite warnings he was a danger to women. The story, the catalogue of horrific errors by the cops that allowed this monster to carry on his reign of terror over women. He was particularly dangerous on the London tube system, where he travelled around on a stolen pass, stolen from a bus driver. But the police just kept letting him go, put him on bail. While he was on bail, he committed his second murder. And was suspected of carrying out his first, both times on bail. This is outrageous. Let's talk to the National Policing Lead on the Women's Rights Network. She's retired South Wales Police Superintendent Cathy Larkman. Cathy, welcome to the show. Good to have you back. Can you tell us where you think everything has gone so wrong here? Why did the police keep releasing this guy? At one point, he was hauled up by the cops because he was travelling on a false, a stolen tube pass, train pass here, the transport pass in London. He'd stolen it from a bus driver. And the cops just gave it back to him and allowed him to leave and to carry on sexually assaulting women, raping them and killing them. He wouldn't have been able to do this if the police had done their job, done a little bit of research and locked him up. What was going on, do you think?
Good afternoon, Kev. I think this is just a failure throughout the whole criminal justice system on so many levels. It really reads like a complete and utter horror story of mismanagement, missed opportunities and gross errors that, you know, horrifically have caused 2 women to lose their lives, other women to be raped, and many women and girls to be sexually assaulted as well on the tube network. There's no doubt that, to me, sort of looking at the circumstances, that British Transport Police and the Metropolitan Police have failed dismally and tragically at many, many steps throughout this awful case. But unfortunately, so have the courts. So have the Crown Prosecution Service as well. And although I note there's an independent Office of Police Conduct investigation that will look at the role of the police throughout this debacle, sadly, you know, that won't encompass the role of the court and the role of the CPS. You know, personally, I think an inquiry is needed to look at criminal justice failures throughout the whole of this.
Well, you're a former copper, so you know about this. There's something quite irritating. I'm sure you never did this, Cathy, but there's something quite irritating about when you encounter a story of chronic, successive police incompetence You know, very dangerous incompetence, which allowed this guy to go free for years on end. He was prolific on the tube system, murdered at least 2 women, raped others when he should have been behind bars. Just cursory checks on his track record would have put him behind bars, but they didn't check. So he carried on being at large. When you hear about all this, Kathy, and then the police always say, it's OK, we've referred ourselves to the IOPC, as if it's, oh, well, if you've done that, that's all we need to know. It's like a mechanism by which they get out of trouble and they kick the can into the long grass so that we can't microanalyse them. Well, I don't think we should fall for it. It's becoming too regular and it's not satisfactory, is it?
No, and, you know, the fact is we hear these warm words all the time about how seriously the agencies, particularly the police, are taking violence against women and girls, and then the reality proves differently, doesn't it? The fact is, in terms of an IOPC referral, it would have been mandatory in these circumstances, so they haven't done it to be nice and transparent for members of the public. I've worked in a professional standards department. There is clearly a death after police contact in this case, and therefore that is a mandatory referral. They have no choice. But I have to say as well, Kev, you know, some time ago we heard from the government that violence against women and girls was a national epidemic, a national emergency, and 13 million was dedicated with a big announcement by the Home Secretary to a violence against women and girls hub. So £13 million of public money, and allegedly that was to drive up standards and improve the whole system approach to this issue. The Simon Levy case is another instance it's not working.
That is the problem here, Kathy. Time and time again, not just with the police, it just seems that the safety of women and children is not a priority in this country, and it should be. Kathy, great to have you on the show. Come on again soon. That's Kathy Larkman there, former police superintendent. After the break, Tim McNally from Piddington, the village that roared, will join us, so you don't want to miss that. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, 25 minutes, we'll be crossing the Atlantic to go live to Los Angeles to talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, find out all the latest goings-on Planet Harry and Meghan, so you don't want to miss that. That's in a little while. But first, he was on our show last week, and he is the chairman of the campaign. Well, he's chairman of a parish council in the village of Piddington. That is Oxfordshire village, pretty Oxfordshire village, that is threatened by a proposed camp to house 1,250 young male migrants nearby. There's only 350 people in Piddington and 46 of them are children. They call themselves the Village That Roared, and they are waging a spirited campaign to stop this migrant camp basically ruining that village, and as Tim said to me last week, significantly changing the childhoods of the children who live there, the 46 kids who live there. So we thought we would get Tim McNally, the chairperson of Piddington Parish Council, back onto the show to run through some of the big stories to see what he thought of them. So a warm welcome to our latest excellent commentator, the chair of Piddington Parish Council, Tim McNally. Hi, Tim.
Hi, good evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate you giving us some time on our course.
I'm very pleased to have you on the show. And right off the bat, let me ask you what you think about this. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has just embarked on what he calls his listening tour of Britain. He's going to go around lots and lots of communities and towns and cities and areas and ask them what's worrying them. He says he's in listening mode. While you've been campaigning for Piddington, campaigning against this mega migrant camp that's proposed nearby for 1,250 young male illegal foreigners, have you formed the impression that Andy Burnham is much of a listener?
To be frank with you, I sent out dozens of invitations to say, Andy, come and visit, come and get to know me. You know, you'll soon have me on your speed dial, I hope. Yeah. You know, the reality is, most of the things we've put out, we've had a massive response across this country, and they've all said in response that there is no way he's going to come and see you. You know, he's just basically going to play and turn, and he's only going to go where he's going to get his photos and get his handshakes. But really, you know, I'm inviting Andy to come and understand, as the Prime Minister, as the statesman of this great nation, understand the proportionality of this site in association with the small village we are, and the impact that takes and the consequences which will come to the children and the families which are here. I haven't had of yet any response, and the only little response I have had was what I'll call a dud letter, which is basically, very sorry, Mr. Burnham's very busy right now, and would you go and talk to the Ministry of Defence?
So in other words, Tim, our listening Prime Minister, despite your best efforts, has not listened to you.
Not to me yet. I mean, even a letter that was given to him on his very day was sent to him on the 20th of July, the day he got into Prime Ministership, and was on Good Morning Britain for 3 segments. 3 hours in a row. He hasn't responded to it. He hasn't identified it as an issue. No one from his office has reached out to me to want to talk to me to help resolve the issues that we see, which are part of this quite challenging situation the government find themselves in right now. And I could help them, but they're not coming to me. You know, I've got great skill set and ability to help people through challenges and problems. And, you know, it's extraordinary just how they are living under a rock.
As we discussed last week, Tim, I think the story of Piddington is a story that's happening to communities all over the country. Absolutely. I'm thinking especially, but not just especially, about Crowborough, lovely picture postcard, East Sussex town, small community, 22,000 souls, who've suddenly had imposed on them a camp, just like you, for only male young migrants, 545 of them. That is already significantly changing the way of life for people in Crowborough. But this is happening all over the country. It's not just Crowborough, it's not just Piddington. You haven't yet got your migrant camp, but just remind us of the scale of what we're talking about. You are a community of 350 people, a classic, pretty English country village, and you got 46 children there. You were making the point that if there are 1,250 young male foreigners free to roam the area every single day, that is going to significantly affect the childhoods of the kids who live in your village, and that's a tragedy.
It is, and what I want the country to know, actually, is although this seems like a selfish concern that I have, what I want people to know is I'm using this as the focal point. I've reached out, we're reaching out now across the nation. We've got quite a connection now across this country with people who are suffering from this very issue, live, real time, whether it be houses of multiple occupancy or the aspect of their site being expanded or a new site coming into play. We're about to, you know, when we spoke last time, we spoke about the battle for Britain. You know, you spoke about the fact that this Piddington really is.
You're at the forefront
central
of
point.
it, yeah.
We are the forefront because actually, you know, we don't have money, we don't have power, we don't have no special skill. But my God, from nothing, from an absolute standing start, we've brought this centre and front debate for Piddington into the international international communication and stuff. It's going on when old Ed Miliband came out of his conversation with the Foreign Secretary of the US. You know, he was very clever about what he said he spoke about, but what he didn't talk about was the fact that he was questioned and asked for reassurances about the securities of the United Kingdom, of which, you know, Donald Trump's favourite piece is the fact there's an invasion going on in Europe, and it continues to go through here. So in terms of this piece, and I want people to realise what I'm doing is, you know, firstly, I'm not a paid member. I don't represent anyone other than my community, but I want to use this community opportunity to bring alive the entire debate for the country and for us to find a final resolution to address this issue that's really blighting a lot of people's lives.
I think you're right. So, yes, this is the battle for Piddington, but it is also the battle for Britain. Your community is just one community threatened with basically ruin if this camp is set up. And your fight is extremely important, and it's extremely worrying that while the Prime Minister, shall we say, is so selective about the issues he wants to listen to wants to talk about, he does not want to talk about the #1 issue that concerns the people of this country, and that's the migrant crisis. And I wanted to get your take, Tim. I mean, when we see what's happening to Piddington and other communities, this can only get exponentially worse and worse and worse if this government carries on letting more and more migrants cross the channel, essentially with impunity. If you get to our southern shores, we'll give you a free hotel or a free place at the Bicester migrant camp. We'll give you 50 quid a week benefits. We'll give you free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free driving lessons, everything. You know, this incentive scheme. And if they don't stop that constant flow of illegal foreigners into this country, then you're going to get more and more Piddingtons. And so I wanted to get your take on the fact that yesterday, well, over the weekend, more than 700 migrants crossed the channel. I think on Saturday, something like 450. Yesterday, it's 260, something like that. But I think it was yesterday we saw the biggest mega boat so far. 2 weeks ago, we were all shocked that one of these inappropriately named small boats, not so small boats, was carrying 165 people. Yeah. Yesterday, one pitched up or made it across the channel with 230 migrants on board. We're looking at a picture of it here. It is grotesque. I mean, it's just a massively great long thing. So what do you make of the fact that these people continue to pour across the channel in their thousands, week in, week out? We have a Prime Minister, the listening Prime Minister, who turns round and says to the nation, yeah, I can see that, but don't worry, Labour's plan to stop the boats is working because the numbers are down. The numbers are down, Tim, because the weather's been bad. There's been a lot of wind.
It is.
The wind is over. The channel is like a mill pond, and they are pouring over like the Spanish Armada now. So what do you make of the fact that the Prime Minister says to us, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to worry about. Labour's plan to stop the boats is working. It's just a lie, isn't it?
Well, Kevin, I'm going to put it a little bit more directly for you to help you understand really how serious this is. What I've got organised and what's coming will probably shock the nation in the nicest, politest way.
Good.
MPs are going to have to wake up. And the reason why I say MPs are going to have to wake up is because their constituents are reaching out to me. They're coming to me and saying, what can we do that you have done? We want to replicate what you've done. We want to represent ourselves in a way that demonstrates back to the government that we are unhappy, vastly unhappy with this. And I believe if I get the numbers big enough, broad enough, wide enough, we could actually generate a request for a general election.
So you are there for any community that wants to organise a protest in the impressive way that you've organised it, the village that roared, declaring your independence. You got noticed by Elon Musk. That's how to go nuclear with a campaign. So you intend to collaborate with other communities to get this going, to turn the battle for Britain into the battle for Britain.
Correct, and that is already underway. I had an hour-and-a-half conversation today with a very significant set of people who are in another camp, as I could call it, and we are now building that process. The protest in its own right is not one which will be waving of flags, shouting, screaming, and doing the like. This is about going for what I call the political jugular. How many villages could hold a referendum in their own right before the government realises, and before the MPs that represent them realises they're in trouble? And I'm going to tell you now, I'm having a meeting this week on the 18th, not this week, the 18th of August, which will be our decision day for our referendum. We will be making a decision, passing the resolution for our referendum day. And let me tell you which day I'm aiming for. And that will be the 15th of September.
Go on.
The United Nations, it's the United Nations International Day of Democracy. And we will be holding our referendum on that day and in readiness for the Labour Party conference week thereafter. And I wonder how many other constituents they might reach out to me and say, show us the blueprint, tell us what we've got to do, help us find the fix. How do we break this process? And, you know, they know they're in trouble. They know the whole political process is in trouble. But what makes them think that they actually have the capability to actually turn this around? I don't have confidence in them whatsoever. They need to go to an election. We need to pull that election, and people should come forward with the ideas and the processes by which we should fix this country.
Why do you think it is, Tim, that this Prime Minister and his predecessor, in fact, successive Prime Ministers, successive administrations, for now the best part of 15, 16 years, have been so unwilling to get to grips with this escalating crisis, which is now an Uber crisis?
It is.
And we still have a Prime Minister who turns round to us and says nothing to see here. Why, given that Burnham, for all his faults, he's not entirely stupid. He knows that people are furious about the migrant crisis. He knows that what we want primarily is for him to stop the boats. So the fact that he doesn't even particularly want to engage about it begs the question, why doesn't Andy Burnham, like all of his predecessors, want to solve the migrant crisis? Why is that, do you think?
I think, I'm going to put it quite bluntly, since the consequence of the Brexit vote, there was a major political upheaval and dismay that, in fact, people could actually change the direction of a country based on their democratic wish and want, and then not deliver any part of that to the level that was necessary. So they all tried not to actually deliver the full Brexit: sovereignty, protection of borders, And yet we still, as a country, go and interfere in other people's borders without a democratic vote in that process. But I think these politicians, as Starmer called out, when he was asked, what do you prefer, Davos or Westminster? And of course, he chose Davos. Davos is much more liberating, much more opportunistic for them. And that's really, what these guys are, is they're all connected into a system that they basically can't step out of. Whatever's entrapping them in it, I can't say, I don't know. But it doesn't make common sense to me, or even logic, or even commercial sense. And I'm talking about the cost of this process. Why on earth they're still going down the same route time and time again and getting it wrong, as we know, as the old Einstein said, repeat the process over and over before you still get the same outcome. Why are we not changing this process? Why are we not making a difference? And one big problem I have is that what do we think we're going to do with these engineers and doctors and architects that are coming over? What vacuum of jobs are they going to get absorbed into? Do you think they're going to become barmen, waiters, waitresses? Do you think they're going to become cleaners, carers? Firstly, they have a 37% literacy rate. And we've got to understand that, the world is changing in employment. Even our own children cannot get into jobs because of the greater technology changing the process by which employment is needed or not, for that matter. So it comes down to a whole number of things. Why are we doing it? Why are we allowing it? And what's the benefit? What's the cost? And even though they said there's £1 billion saved from the process of getting them out of these hotels, all they've done is move that £1 billion risk, and they've stuffed it under another line on a ledger in an accounts process. The £1 billion loss is still going to exist. You cannot control that.
Exactly right. And are you aware of September the 15th, your chosen date? That's the anniversary of the Battle of Britain as well.
Gee, goodness me. You see, the world aligns itself.
Exactly. The stars are aligning here. This is the Battle of Britain, and you are going to launch the battle for Britain.
This is beautiful.
There you go. Another raft for your campaign. Listen, we're backing you all the way, as you know, Tim, and I'd like you to come and do this. I wanted to get you on to talk about, obviously, the migrant crisis in Piddington, but I'm really interested in your other views as well. So please.
Kevin, always a joy. If I can help in any way, I'd love to.
Well, we'd like to put you are now officially on our commentators' rota, whether you like it or not. So there's nothing you can do about it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I hope it's been enjoyable for the rest of your
It really was. Tim, great stuff. Thank you very much. Tim McNally, chairman of the Piddington Parish Council, the village that roared, little village in Oxfordshire. Classic, beautiful, pretty little village in Oxfordshire, threatened by the spectre of this massive migrant camp for 1,250 young male asylum seekers who broke into this country illegally. 350 people, 46 children. I mean, that village will be ruined, as Tim McNally said. This is the battle for Britain. It's not just Piddington, it's communities all over the country. It sounds as if Tim is ready to give the Prime Minister that message. We're not going to put up with this. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. You've got to do something about this. You can't keep ignoring us, shrug your shoulders and go, oh, but I've put a cap on the £2 bus fares. Yeah, great. This is a bread roll. It should be called a barn. Or what is it, whatever the hell he said. Who cares? Who the hell cares? There's a Smiths song for you. No, Andy, just be a proper Prime Minister. Stop the TikTok crap and lead us properly. Do something about the #1 issue that concerns the people of this country, the migrant crisis. Stop ignoring it. Stop ignoring it. It's wrong. So stop it, OK? 03444991000. Let me know what you think about all of that. Next up, we're going to cross the Atlantic. We're going to talk to Kinsey Schofield about all the latest goings-on Planet Royal, particularly concerning Meghan and Harry. That next. Stay tuned.
single sex basis on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Get on the phone, give me a call. I want to know what you think about this Prime Minister. He's on his listening tour. He's in listening mode, Andy Burnham. Well, he won't be listening to anybody who says, are you going to stop the boats? He won't listen to that. That's what we're worried about the most. Why won't this Prime Minister even engage with us about stopping the boats? Why doesn't he want to stop the boats? Why doesn't Shabana Mahmood want to stop the boats? Why do they effectively encourage these migrants to come across the channel illegally in increasingly massive boats? What do you make of a boat, a single dinghy carrying 230 passengers who we think probably made the people smugglers alone on one boat more than £500,000. That is the new face of the migrant crisis. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. What are we going to do about the migrant crisis, and why won't the Prime Minister talk about it? Get on the phone, let's talk. 0344 499 1000. Let's go over to my excellent next guest. She is the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. She is Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev.
Good to have you on the show, as always. Well, leading on from a theme we discussed last week, it is interesting, isn't it, that Martha Stewart, the renowned domestic goddess who really does know how to cook and really does know how to run a house, unlike Meghan Markle, who just pretends she does. Martha goes to a dinner party in California, says, oh, funny enough, Meghan Markle was there. I heard her gossiping with other guests about her trip to see the King a couple of weeks ago. Since then, the thrower of the dinner party has mysteriously, apparently rung People magazine to say, oh, you got this all wrong. You know, Martha Stewart's got the wrong end of the stick. Meghan wasn't talking about all of this, da-da-da-da. In other words, allegedly, I have to say that, Meghan Markle has got her attack dogs to phone People magazine and effectively say Martha Stewart is lying. That's not true, I don't think. Do you?
No, I don't have. Martha Stewart has no reason to lie about what Meghan Markle was talking about at a dinner party. You know, I'm under the impression that when Martha Stewart shared that information, that wasn't the dig. I don't think Martha knew that Harry and Meghan were under strict protocol to keep all details secret, because this is an exercise in trust between the King and Prince Harry. The dig comes at the end when Martha basically says, I don't have a lot to say about Meghan's career trajectory, but from going from an actress to a princess to a lifestyle guru, you can say, you can do, you know, you can
it's a tough
come
journey.
to your own, come to your own conclusions about that, which is the dig. You know, the dig isn't, I'm going to tell you some gossip. Meghan Markle was, the dig comes at the end. I think she's oblivious to the fact that she's getting Meghan in trouble with that information. And that's why I think that this was a sincere, organic moment. And I think it's more suspicious that an anonymous source contacts People magazine and says, no, 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 it was my dinner party, but you can't say who I am. And the speed at which said anonymous source contacts People magazine and says, I want to dispute this story.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, in the great scheme of things, I mean, you know, this is pure speculation. We don't know the facts. But I can't see that anyone else would be interested in, shall we say, correcting or attempting to correct this story, except for Meghan Markle. No one else would be that interested. Martha Stewart, meanwhile, I think her attitude is this. She's not bothered about Meghan Markle at all. Why would she be? But I think she is justifiably mildly irritated with a woman who invades her space. You know, Martha Stewart has spent a lifetime establishing herself as someone who really knows how to cook, really knows about home economics, really knows about how to be a domestic goddess. That's her skill. That's her life skill. And along comes this former actress, wannabe princess, who suddenly announces, I'm a domestic goddess and I've made a series and it's on Netflix and it's called With Love, Meghan. And then you watch it and you realise she has no idea what she's talking about. And I think Martha Stewart looks at all that and just does find it rather mildly irritating. It's not that easy to be a domestic goddess. Meghan seems to think it is.
Well, and Martha Stewart has put in decades of work. I mean, I think that her career spans my entire existence on this planet, and she is self-made. I mean, she says all the time, I don't even think I ever need to get married again. I'm completely content. Whereas Meghan clearly has the opportunities that she has because of the man that she married. And for a self-made woman, that has to be incredibly frustrating for Meghan to just pop up on the scene thanks to her husband's DNA and say, no, I'm the next Martha Stewart. And that's what we were being pitched, remember? We were pitched, here comes the second coming of Gwyneth Paltrow / Martha Stewart. For Martha Stewart, who worked so hard, blood, sweat, and tears, 24-hour days to get, and also like, it wasn't always glamorous for Martha. Sometimes it was Martha Stewart in Kmart. You know what I mean? And Meghan Markle just pops up on the scene and Netflix invests millions of dollars into a loose fruit spread company with no bigger vision. They give her, you know, two seasons and a Christmas special of a TV show. And Martha had to do it the hard way. So I agree with your point that Martha doesn't have any personal issues with Meghan Markle, but I doubt she takes her seriously. And I bet she's really tired of being asked about her in interviews that are supposed to be about Martha Stewart. Martha was sitting down for an interview about her cover story with People magazine. And I've mentioned this a couple of times this week, and I apologize, but it's just the boldness and the courage of Martha Stewart that I really admire, because she was promoting something last year or the year before with Jose Andres, who does, this is a chef who does have an established friendship with Harry and Meghan. He appeared on With Love, Meghan. Harry was recently at a restaurant opening of his in downtown LA. And Martha was critical of Meghan Markle during this junket interview sitting next to Jose Andres. And I was saying, like, I just love the fearlessness of Martha. I don't know whether she knew they had an established relationship, but she didn't care. But it's also that she's just tired of being asked about this woman when there is no relationship there. Like, stop bringing her up. She's not in my league. She's not on my level. It reminds me of Mariah Carey constantly saying about Jennifer Lopez, I don't know her.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. That, as I say, Martha Stewart is not bothered about Meghan, but she finds it quite irritating that people keep asking her about this. When Meghan's idea of being a domestic goddess is, I know, I'll make a series about it. That's about as far as it goes. Whereas, as you say, Martha Stewart spent a lifetime perfecting her skills, so it's not as easy as Meghan thinks. Let's move on. She's been our hero, the Duchess, the difficult Duchess of Sussex, has been out there promoting this film that her and Harry sort of produced called Cookie queens, their names cropped up as executive producers. I'm not quite sure what their involvement was. It's about like girl guides, isn't it? Young girls who join the Girl Guides.
It's the competitive nature of children trying to sell Girl Scout cookies.
There you go, Girl Scouts, that's right, that's what you call them, isn't it? So, she's been out there, old Meghan, promoting this film, given interviews, and during these interviews for this film, she says that her superpower is being a mum, because all mums have superpower. She says that her daughter, Princess Lily, makes her, it's not princess anyway, is it, by the way, makes her feel brave. And she says, I feel like we have superpowers because we juggle it all and enjoy it with grace and grit at the same time. Every day when I feel a little bit like, oh gosh, can I do this? I go, Lily would do it. So do you think that Meghan's superpower is being a mum because she has to juggle so much in order to fit in parenting her children? Or do you think she has a nanny?
I think it's my understanding she has multiple nannies. I mean, I consider anyone courageous that walks around barefoot as much as Meghan Markle does, because I am fearful of athlete's foot. But I would say what she is not a superhero in is marketing and movie producing, because Page Six reports this morning that Cookie Queens crumbled at the box office over the weekend. And to quote Page Six, as the latest Hollywood misstep from the runaway royals, I think it was just $735 per screen is what Page Six reported.
Wow.
It opened at number 15, according to Box Office Pro. And that was 5 spots behind Cat Video Fest 2026, a 70-minute theatrical compilation of internet's best cat videos. So that is...
Can't beat cat videos. I mean,
behind Cat Fest.
So this is about Girl Scouts, and you know, Harry and Meghan mysteriously suddenly cropped up as the executive producers. Now, I said immediately, I said, well, why have they gone out of their way to become executive producers of this film? It's a cute little documentary. I haven't seen it myself. It's a cute little documentary about Girl Scouts, Girl Guides, as we call them here in Britain. I mean, you know, nice, but there's no box office potential there. I knew it. Anybody can see this.
Page Six actually argues that that's not. This is the California Post, I should stress, which is owned by Page Six. They're all in the same family.
Yeah.
They argue with you because they say in the 2003 documentary Spellbound, tonally similar, revolved around 8 kids vying for the National Spelling Bee title. That film had a per-screen average of $17,508, where I just read to you that Harry and Meghan had a 700 and something per screen. So a similar, you know, tone of children competing, and Harry and Meghan, you know, could not even bring in a percentage of that.
Yeah, well, let's listen to the difficult Duchess. This is her description of Cookie Queens. She said, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it is one of the most powerful and meaningful depictions of something that is an American tradition and rooted in nostalgia. It is now put through this lens from the incredible creative vision of Alisa, that's the director, I assume, to show something modernized about the girlhood experience and all the layers of complexity that come with that. I mean, that's a pretty pretentious way of describing a documentary about Girl Scouts. But once again, you know, I've always said this about Meghan. She has no idea about the commercial imperative. She has no idea what interests people, what might work commercially. She gets it wrong time and time again. You know, nobody's out there going, you know what, I wish someone would do a long and boring podcast series about what it's like for a female to start a company. I mean, you know, that
or 10 of those podcasts already exist. So
yeah,
why does Meghan think that hers is going to be better? But I also think that what we're seeing is that, you know how I constantly complain to you, and I apologize, but you know how I constantly complain to you about how Meghan released With Love Meghan, and it was, don't forget that it was postponed, but she released With Love Meghan months before As Ever was physically available. That does not make sense to me from a marketing standpoint. There should have been a QR code on the screen, so while I'm watching Meghan sprinkle flower sprinkles on With Love Meghan, they should have taken advantage of that to where I could have been sitting there watching it and buying it at the same time, the way TikTok Shop works. But, they spoke to Jeff Bach, who's a senior media analyst, and he said, why would you not launch this documentary at the height of Girl Scout cookie season when the cookies and the girls are selling them and they're a part of the national conversation? He said, for a small documentary, timing is marketing. It missed the very window that could have made it feel relevant and turned curiosity into ticket sales. Guess that's the way the cookie crumbles. So, that I thought was very clever because, yes, when you're seeing Girl Scouts here in the States on every corner and outside of dispensaries in California trying to show Girl Scout cookies, you go home and you talk about it. That would have been the perfect time to launch this film. It's like they never get it right, Kevin. And so it's common sense to some of us, but I just don't understand how they could make such huge mistakes when it comes to these projects.
I've said in the past, this is just my speculation, is the basic problem of the Sussexes that neither of them have an iota of talent to split between them. Yeah, you're about to say yes, aren't you? I mean, seriously, I just think, well, Harry hasn't got any talent, that's for damn sure. And I don't think Meghan has either. And that is rather difficult if you're trying to make your way in the ruthless world of Tinseltown. And it just ain't working for them. Another flop, another disaster. What do we make of that? Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you. We'll talk again on Thursday, hopefully. I think I'm doing your podcast tomorrow, so I will see you then. The brilliant Kinsey Schofield on the latest goings-on planet Harry and Meghan. What a disastrous planet that is. She is the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, of course. If you have any thoughts on the gruesome twosome, let me know. Give me a call, 03444991000. But otherwise, just get in touch, generally speaking, with your views on any of the topics we've discussed. I'm particularly interested in your views on the massive mega-dinghy, no longer a small boat, 230 people on board. Now, we estimate that's going to make the people smugglers about £500,000, one boat. It's going to cost us millions over the next year, £40,000 for each person on board that boat. This is out of control. Why is the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, telling us no problem, nothing to see here? Labour's plan to bring the boats into check, to bring the number of crossings down, is working. It's not working, is it? Clearly. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Why does our Prime Minister keep telling us it's working? I really want to get your views on that. Let me know. 03444991000. Let's go to break. Your calls, your messages when we come back. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to go to the phones in a little while. Get involved if you want. 03444991000. Taking calls for the rest of the show. Before we go to the phones, here is a voice note from Jill on our guest, Tim McNally. He's from the village of the Broad, Paddington. He is waging that village's campaign against a giant migrant camp proposed right nearby, which he says will ruin their village and ruin life for their children. That's Tim McNally. Jill wants to talk about Tim.
I'm just amazed that you had Tim from Paddington on the show just now. I've followed them since the very beginning, and where I am in Northampton is not a million miles away from Paddington. So I've offered my support. Not that they're doing protests or marches. They're doing very well without. He's an amazing man. He's so articulate. And just to say again, thank you for highlighting this plight and the plight of so many other villages, towns and areas in the whole of this country where similar things are happening. It's an absolute disgrace, and something has to be done. It has to be done. We cannot carry on letting these people into our country.
Well said, Jill. As I say, I think the battle for Paddington is the battle for Britain, and Tim McNally is going to make it the battle for Britain. It turns out he's chosen, he's got a serious campaign worked out that he says is going to certainly make the Prime Minister aware of them in a major way. He's working with other communities around the country. He's going to launch it on September the 15th. Which is the anniversary of the Battle of Britain. Tim McNally, folks, is fighting the battle for Britain. And so are all the other communities who have had their ways of life destroyed by local asylum seeker centres. If not destroyed, materially affected. As Tim McNally says, what about the kids who live in our village? 46 of them. Their childhoods are going to be materially changed. We shouldn't have to live like this, folks. We really, really shouldn't. 03444991000. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Brian in Hertfordshire. Hi, Brian.
Hello.
You want to talk about the boats? What would you like to say?
Well, just you mentioned before that for every one person that comes over, it costs us anywhere between 20 and 40,000. That boat cost us £5 million today.
I know.
£5 million. That's just for 1 year.
Yeah.
And we need to be a state of emergency, close our borders, and stop pandering to the fact that we need to accept anyone and everyone. Just shut the borders like Australia did.
Yeah.
Stop it.
What do you make, bro? I agree, Brian. I agree. What do you make of the fact? It was yesterday. That one of these boats, the biggest boat we've seen so far, was carrying 230 passengers. Over the weekend, something more than 700 came across, taking Andy Burnham's personal tally since he became Prime Minister of something like 3,000 migrants have crossed the Channel illegally since he became our supreme leader. What do you make of the fact, Brian, that he just doesn't want to talk about it? He's got no proposals to do anything about it. He just keeps telling us, well, the numbers are down, so clearly Labour's plan to stop the boats is working. That's just a lie, isn't it? 3,000 since he came to power just over 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's just gaslighting us, isn't it?
I was Prime Minister. That's all he's got to say about his life at one point. He is no good for anything else. Dawn the Labour Party. I don't know why we're just putting up with this rubbish. I know it's never been done since whenever 19 whatever year it was. Mm-hmm. Just tell the King to kick out Parliament. It's time. They're not doing what... No politician has done anything in the last 20 years that's been worth talking about. When was the last time a politician went out to another country and brought us business in? We've ruined this country to a point that it's not worth anything.
We are being mismanaged on an epic scale, Brian. What worries me is this Prime Minister. He's off on his listening tour of Britain. But if you or I collared him and said, I want you to listen to this, will you stop the boats? He won't listen to you. He'll only listen to you if you want to talk about his favourite subjects. If you go up to him and say, could you make the bus fares a bit cheaper? He'll be all over you like a second skin. But anything serious, forget about it, Brian. Forget about it. Mate, really good call. Thanks for ringing in. Excellent. Call me again. Brian in Hertfordshire. Let's go to a break, and when we come back, we'll take more of your calls. Next up, it's Jake in Wokingham, but after these messages, stay where you are. What's this about you approving of Andy Burnham going on a holiday?
Yes, I do. I've written an article for the newspaper. I think you're wrong. I think Carl Turner's wrong.
Why?
Why? Because people need holidays and we want politicians
15 days? 15 days. What nonsense are you writing in the iPaper?
Do you want to take it?
15, what is he, an oil rig worker? 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? You don't think he'll come to regret this holiday? Let me tell you, he will.
I'd rather take it now than in October, and I want our politicians to be like normal people taking a holiday in the summer, but we'll get into all of that.
That's absolute rubbish.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A couple of messages. Go back to the phones in a second. Margaret says, what a great interview with Tim McNally. Thank you, Margaret. No, I just asked the questions. He was a great interviewee. Wished him the best of luck on September the 15th. Andy Burnham, get yourself to Piddington ASAP. Yeah, in your dreams, Margaret. You won't do that because the people at Piddington want to talk about an issue that is uncomfortable for him. He doesn't want to do that. Alan in Sunderland says, Burnham says the numbers are down to a still very unacceptable numbers. To still very unacceptable numbers. They're only down because of the weather. It's not because of the government's plans. This is from Amanda. Re-private schools. Why don't Labour, who claim to be so righteous, set up more state grammar schools for poor kids to flourish? Because they think grammar schools are divisive. They're a sort of symbol of unequal privilege for clever kids. They don't like that. So, yeah, that's the whole reason for the comprehensive scheme, which arguably ruined education in this country. This is from Phil, loving the show. Kev, how do you keep calm? Well, I'm not famous for keeping calm, Phil. Why on earth, he continues, is our so-called government allowing it? They must want it to happen. There can't be any other reason. It's outraged Phil in Kent. You mean the migrant crisis? Absolutely. I think they want these migrants to carry on coming across. There's no other explanation for their absolute lethargy and their failure to tackle an issue which should be quite easy to tackle if only you had the will and the resolve. They don't have the will and the resolve. Look at Trump. He stopped migrants coming across the southern border in about 2 weeks flat. Reduced it by about 94% in 2 weeks. We could do that, except we don't have a government that wants to. Don't have a Prime Minister that wants to. Peter Cardwell will be in a little while to tell you what he's got lined up for your entertainment from 7 until 10 p.m. But first, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to John in Wokingham. Hello, John. What would you like to say? You live near Piddington, right?
Yes, good evening, Kev. Yeah, I live near Piddington for nearly 40 years. Beautiful Oxfordshire town. It's going to be absolutely destroyed by dumping 1,000 migrants in their back door. So if you're sitting on your house you worked your entire life for, it's worth £700,000. Kiss goodbye to that, and it's worth zero the minute they dump them in there. So happy days with Andy Burnham and his bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Kroger as well.
Yeah, another thing that Tim McNally, who's organising the Village That Roared campaign, said that really struck a chord with me, John. He said, look, we've got 350 people living in this village. 46 of them are children. He said, those 46 kids, if we get 1,250 young male migrants of military age, or you might like to say sexually active age, from foreign cultures right on our doorstep, he said, their childhoods, the childhoods of the kids in this village will be significantly altered. And that is a tragedy. That is a tragedy.
It is. And I don't know if you're aware of it. There's a big a factory outlet shop called Bicester Village.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. Yeah.
You've been there, yeah? Right.
Yeah.
They're going to be empty. They'll be emptied in 2 days because this lot are going to...
Yeah, they're shoplifting central.
Really
yeah,
that designer stuff. Yeah, they could get a bus and they could probably walk there from Piddington, in all fairness, Kevin. So I know the area very, very well. And they must be absolutely, pardon my phrase, pooing their pants by now.
Yeah, well, we don't quite know that they're going to go shoplifting, but there's always reason to worry with these things, John. John, great call, mate. Great call. All the best. Thanks for ringing. Call me again. Let's go to Matthew in Warrington. Hello, Matthew. You want to talk about number 10 North? You got any idea what it's for? Because damned if I do. Damned if I know.
No, I haven't, but I don't mind it. Kev, I really don't mind it on one condition.
Yeah.
On a Thursday, when they all clock off in Westminster, they all jump in their cars, the little 2-litre Sierras or whatever they've got. Yeah. Top it up with diesel at £1.87 a litre. It might be £1.90 down there. Then they go and pay Mr. Khan's emissions charges.
Yeah.
And try and get out of London at 20 mile an hour.
Good luck with
then
that.
They can get on the and then they can get on the M25 and try and get through the M25. Get up the M1 and the M6 with a 50 mile an hour roadworks everywhere and fines everywhere. And then when you do get to Manchester, they can go and stay in Travel Lodge and share a bed each.
Yeah, but instead, Matthew, the Prime Minister intends to mostly fly up there on the Prime Ministerial jet. That's £10,000 to £15,000 per flight. The guy who's running the operation, a guy called Sam Lister, he's a Whitehall Mandarin. He lives in a £2.2 million London townhouse. He's commuting up there. We're paying for his commuting, and he's living in the Deansgate Hotel, a very flashy hotel in Manchester. We're paying for that, plus all the civil servants that have to go up there, plus all the security staff. Number 10 North, the Prime Minister's stupid vanity project is costing us a fortune. That's a disgrace, don't you think?
Oh, it's a nice little number if you can get it. I think we're in the wrong job here, Kevin. I think we're doing something wrong, aren't we?
Oh, of course we are. Of course we are. Yes, if you can live at the taxpayer's expense, you're in clover, Matthew. Matthew, great call. Thank you for ringing. Matthew in Warrington there. Let's go to Adrian in Kent. Adrian, you're in Kent. You're on the front line there. You must see the boats coming across. What do you reckon? What do you make of the 230-strong passenger boat that came over yesterday? Massive amount of people on one dinghy.
This is quite extraordinary, Kevin, because a couple of weeks ago, my boss came in the workshop and he showed me a picture of this mega-dinghy with, well, I think it was 160.
Yeah, 165 2 Fridays ago, and now yesterday the biggest ever, 230.
So where are these things being inflated?
Yeah. Well, where they're being made, I mean, you know, if you're watching on the telly, people can see the photograph of this mega dinghy. I mean, it's about as long as Southend Pier. I mean, it's not just a question of supply. That is a question of manufacture. That boat, such as it is, has been specifically made, manufactured to serve the migrant crisis. Kind of worrying.
But surely they're being inflated in France or Belgium or somewhere like that. Another.
No, there's an industry going on.
Do they just stand there and go, oh, well, we'll just watch you inflate this for a couple of hours?
Hey, that's a pretty big boat you're inflating there. You offer us a pleasure cruise, you know. Yeah, we're being taken for a ride all round, Adrian. We really, really are. How about stopping that boat? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Instead of the gendarmes just standing there watching it depart, which is all they ever do. Very good point, Adrian. Thanks for calling. Please call me again. That's Adrian in Kent. Peter Cardwell's in the studio. He's going to take you up to 10 p.m. What do you got lined up, Pete?
Hi, Kev. Well, those definitely aren't small boats. They're extremely large boats.
Massive,
we'll be talking about them as